Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're looking at something deeply unsettling. We're going to dive into 3 terrifying real-life accounts that systematically shatter this illusion of domestic security we all have. We'll be analyzing threats that move progressively closer and closer to our most private sanctuaries.
Think about it. Moving into a new house usually represents a fresh start, right? It represents safety. But as we unpack the details in these source materials, we really have to ask ourselves just how fragile those physical boundaries actually are. You lock your doors, you close your blinds, but does that truly keep the outside world exactly where it belongs? Someone had been living in our house and we didn't even know it. Just let that sink in. That chilling realization from our final account perfectly captures the psychological journey we're taking today. We're exploring this terrifying escalation of proximity, so we'll start at the property line, move to the perimeter of the house, and finally end up inside the very walls themselves.
Threat level 1. The danger next door. This is where the nightmare begins, literally, just across the property line.
So long before the real violence kicked off, the homeowners started noticing these bizarre anomalies. A normal-seeming Polish couple moved in next door, but the pleasantries quickly faded. They were replaced by unexplainable, incredibly loud music and this heavy midnight banging. And then, get this, the new neighbor comes home with his car just severely damaged on both sides. When asked, he gives these clumsy, basically mathematically impossible excuses about hitting a concrete pole on one side and a trailer on the other.
This whole deception escalated into pure chaos within a single week. It all started with a highly suspicious, obviously staged break-in around 6 p.m. where absolutely nothing was stolen. Fast forward exactly 1 week, a car literally tears through the homeowner's front garden and slams right into the neighbor's door. The police managed to arrive in just 7 minutes, and they find these guys frantically loading up high-end electronics. The actual neighbor, he's beaten so badly he refuses to cooperate with the cops, which leads the homeowners to drop him off at the hospital around 10:30 p.m. And then, the sheer terror really peaks at 1 a.m. when the homeowner's dog just begins to growl.
But let's back up a second to when the police intercepted those men loading the stolen electronics. The driver looked the officer dead in the eye and flat out claimed to be the owner. But there was a massive catch here. The driver spoke fluent Dutch with a thick Polish accent. In the entire 9 months the actual neighbor lived there, he had never spoken a single word of Dutch.
The psychological toll of realizing your safe, quiet neighborhood has been compromised by lethal underworld drama is perfectly captured in this horrifying midnight observation. Remember that 1 a.m. dog growl I mentioned? Well, the homeowner checked their security camera and saw the actual badly beaten neighbor was back from the hospital. Suddenly, a car pulls up, and the man absolutely panics, hiding behind the homeowner's cars in the driveway. The car stops, and his own wife steps out. He's crouching in the shadows, literally hiding from his own wife as she begins to wail with this haunting, guttural cry right there in the street. Just chillin'.
Okay, moving on to threat level 2, the watcher at the window. The danger now moves from the neighborhood right up to the physical perimeter of a suburban Montreal home.
This one is wild. A 15-year-old girl's bedroom layout unwittingly created the absolute perfect surveillance setup. Her ground-level window was missing some vertical blinds, right? And directly opposite that window were sliding, mirrored closet doors. So, think about this. Every single time she lay in bed facing her closet, she was essentially looking at a crystal-clear reflection of the dark, exposed window right behind her.
It is honestly terrifying how easily we'll gaslight ourselves just to feel safe. Late at night, she'd hear the shuffling and, creepily enough, deep breathing outside her open window. But she and even her father constantly rationalized it away. They blamed the squeaky gate, the wind, or even just her habit of watching scary YouTube videos before bed. But in reality, a physical presence was standing right outside.
And there was a super chilling, calculated pattern to these disturbances. They would completely stop whenever the harsh Canadian winter hit and the ground was covered in snow. But as soon as mid-spring arrived, boom, the noises returned. The stalker was deliberately staying away when the snow would have left visible footprints. They were entirely manipulating the environment to stay perfectly hidden.
It finally took a massive windstorm in December 2021 to break that illusion. The vigilant father stepped out into the backyard around 11:30 p.m. just to check for storm damage. And right there, illuminated by the bedroom light, he completely shattered years of the victim's rationalizations. He exposed the horrifying truth. A man was standing there, perfectly still, just staring into the room.
a terrifying routine that had likely been going on for years.
Which brings us to threat level 3, the stranger in the walls. This is the ultimate breach of sanctuary, a threat that bypassed the neighborhood and the perimeter entirely.
Once again, we see the extreme danger of rationalization. This family in Alberta experienced multiple intrusions that they just brushed off. A front door mysteriously left wide open while they were out at dinner. Well, they assumed nothing was stolen, even though books on a shelf were clearly moved around. Even when the 15-year-old girl heard literal, clear laughter coming from the solid wall next to her bed at 2 a.m., she somehow convinced herself it was just pipe noises, or maybe her sleep-deprived imagination playing tricks on her.
But the unseen threat finally made a critical mistake. While babysitting, the 15-year-old heard heavy footsteps on the baby monitor. That was followed by a distinct shh sound right near her infant sister's crib, and then a loud crash. She immediately launched into this incredibly brave, step-by-step survival procedure. She ran upstairs, grabbed her father's unloaded rifle, marched straight down to the basement, and completely bluffed the unseen intruder by screaming that she was armed. She evacuated her crying sister and barricaded the door upstairs. Just unbelievable courage.
When the police arrived, they actually gave the all clear at first, finding absolutely no one. But then, the father suddenly remembered those slightly moved books from months prior. You remember that? So he asked the officers to check behind this embedded bookshelf in the basement wall. And it turned out that bookshelf wasn't just a built-in piece of furniture, it was a hidden door. It pushed open, leading to a small, secret room that housed the house's pipes.
What they found inside that small pipe room was undeniably chilling. We're talking food wrappers, a missing cup from their own kitchen, stolen lotion, and a switchblade. But the absolute most terrifying detail, a partially eaten, totally fresh apple. The intruder had literally been sitting silently right behind the wall, munching on an apple, listening to the very police search happening just feet away. No way!
But incredibly, the physical breach isn't even the most disturbing part. Days later, the victim explored the room herself and found the true nightmare. The intruder had actually carved a tiny spy hole straight through the drywall, and it was perfectly angled directly at her bed and dresser. He had been secretly watching her sleep, study, and just live her life.
So, bringing this all together, a pretty stark core truth emerges. Whether a threat is operating a lethal racket next door, standing silently at your window, or quite literally living inside the walls of your basement, our homes are really only as secure as our willingness to actually acknowledge the danger around us.
The absolutely crucial takeaway you should apply to your own life from this explainer is the concept of the anomaly warning. Trusting your instincts is paramount. Refusing to just rationalize away these anomalies, like books being slightly out of place, a neighbor suddenly speaking the wrong language, or a strange shadow in a mirror, that could be the very thing that keeps your sanctuary safe.
As we wrap up this explainer on the terrifying escalation of proximity, I want to leave you with this final, kind of unsettling thought to consider. Knowing exactly how easily these physical boundaries can be crossed, and knowing how desperately our brains just want to pretend everything is fine, what unseen realities might you be rationalizing away right now? I mean, the next time you hear a creak in your home late at night, will you still blame the wind?